Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to go way beyond the fantasy world of Narnia and break down the really practical and, often challenging philosophy of C.S. Lewis. This is his guide for navigating the absolute core problems of being human: desire, pain, and ultimately purpose. Okay, so let's just dive right in with the question Lewis uses to frame the entire human condition. You know that feeling, right? That sense that even when things are amazing, the perfect vacation, a new love, a huge success, there's still something missing. Like the real prize just slipped right through your fingers. For Lewis, this deep, unquenchable desire isn't a bug, it's a feature. Seriously, it's not a sign that you're broken. It's actually a clue that's pointing to what you were really made for. And he says there are basically three ways people try to deal with this fundamental ache we all have. Now, what's so interesting here is how Lewis just lays out these responses. First, you've got the fool's way. This is the person who's always thinking the next thing, the next car, the next trip, the next relationship. That will be the one that finally satisfies them. Then you have the sensible man. He's a bit more pragmatic. He just decides this deep longing is all adolescent nonsense, stuffs it down, and settles. But Lewis argues they both miss the point because they're trying to solve the problem inside the wrong system. And here it is. This is the absolute core of his argument. Lewis frames our deepest longing as a piece of evidence. It's like this. A baby feels hunger, and guess what? Food exists. A duckling wants to swim, and yep, water exists. So if we have this deep desire that nothing on Earth can satisfy, well, maybe that's because Earth was never meant to be the final destination. All right, let's keep going, because this builds into one of Lewis's most practical principles. If our ultimate desire is actually for another world, what happens when we try to make something in this world our ultimate goal? Well, that leads to what he calls a universal law of misplaced priorities. Lewis starts with a super simple, almost kind of mundane example. You take something good, like the love of a pet, but you elevate it into your ultimate first thing. What happens? Well, you end up corrupting the very simple, good pleasure you were chasing in the first place. And he gives another one. The guy who makes getting drunk his ultimate goal doesn't just lose his health and his family. Eventually, he loses the ability to even enjoy the drink itself. You see the pattern here, right? So this all brings us to this core rule he calls first and second things. It's simple. By putting a second thing first, you don't actually get it. In fact, you lose it, and you lose any chance of getting the first thing too. The world, Lewis says, is just built this way. It's a fundamental law. So if our desires are all tangled up and our priorities are completely backwards, what in the world could possibly shake us out of that illusion? This brings us to Lewis's really stark, really unflinching view on the purpose of pain. But before he dives in, Lewis is incredibly precise with his language. He wants to be clear. He's not just talking about a toothache. He means pain in the biggest possible sense. Any kind of suffering, any anguish, any adversity that we experience and, dislike. Okay, so why is this kind of pain so important? Well, think about it. We can easily ignore our own mistakes, our own foolishness. We can rationalize them away, but you can't rationalize away pain. It's an evil that is impossible to overlook. It just demands your full attention. And here it is, his central metaphor. When things are good, when we're enjoying our pleasures, we can happily ignore God. But pain, Lewis says, is a megaphone. It shatters that comfortable illusion that we've got everything under control, and it forces us to finally listen up. Pain, in this view, is basically a dose of reality. It's the universe screaming at us that our choices, our way of life, is out of sync with how things actually work. It's like a flag planted right in the middle of our own personal fortress, declaring that we are not, in fact, the king of the castle. So, pain gets our attention. It shatters our illusions. What's the right response? Well, according to Lewis, it is not a minor course correction. No, it's a complete, total, and honestly terrifying surrender. Lewis just draws this super sharp contrast here. Our natural instinct is to treat doing good like paying taxes. We'll pay what's required, sure, maybe a little grudgingly, but we fully expect to keep most of our income, our natural self, for ourselves. But Lewis says that's just not the deal that's on the table. So the demand isn't about trimming a few bad habits or trying to be a little bit better. The demand is for the entire self. He's not asking you to just prune a few bad branches. He's asking you to hand over the whole tree, roots and all, so it can be replaced with something totally new. And he uses this absolutely brilliant metaphor to hammer the point home. Look, transformation isn't about improving the egg. It's about becoming something else entirely. Trying to hold on to your eggness while also trying to fly is, well, it's impossible. So the choice, as Lewis frames it, isn't really between being a good egg and a bird. It's between being hatched or going rotten. Okay, so let's get practical. If we're being called to this total surrender, this radical transformation, how does that change something as basic as prayer? I mean, how do we actually start living this way? Lewis immediately confronts the biggest intellectual hurdle most people have with prayer, right? If God knows everything, isn't it kind of absurd to list off your needs or confess sins he already saw you commit? What's the point? And the answer, Lewis says, is a total game changer. It's that prayer isn't for God's benefit, it's for ours. It changes our status. We move from being just a passive object that God knows about, like a rock or a star, to being an active person in a relationship, willingly opening ourselves up to Him. And this leads to some incredibly down-to-earth advice. Prayer has to be brutally honest. Don't tell God what you think you should be feeling. Tell Him what's actually in there. And no desire is too trivial. If it's on your mind, it's a barrier between you and Him until it's out in the open. And hey, don't wait for the perfect quiet moment. A quick prayer on a crowded train is way better than no prayer at all. And this brings us right back around to where we started. The whole point of this entire difficult journey, recognizing our deep desire, reordering our priorities, going through pain, and surrendering our very selves, it's all to reorient our ultimate aim. Because paradoxically, Lewis argues it's only by aiming for that first thing, for heaven, that we have any chance at all of finding real joy and fulfillment in the second thing, which is earth. Aim only for earth, and you'll end up losing both.